Well, hello and welcome back to math class. You will notice that our lesson for today is lesson 3.4, and it is on graphing ratio tables. This is actually a page from your book. You can always go look at it later, but I wanted to kind of go over it with you first before we started making some examples. Ratio tables, we've talked about ratio tables. It says here to represent each ratio relationship using a graph. So we have here, we're obviously using some flour and some water. For every 4 cups of flour, we need 2 cups of water. So we doubled it, 8 flour cups, 4 water cups. Then we tripled it to make 12 for flour and 6 for water. We make our ratio table. Then you will notice, and let me grab this to help us, that we have something called ordered pairs. And if you notice, our ordered pair comes from up here, which is our equivalent ratios. We have here 4:2. The next one we have is 8:4. And the last one we put on here is 12:6, which is from here. So our ordered pairs will list from our ratio table. After we make our ordered pairs, we're going to come to our graph paper. If you notice, the first thing we do is we put our labels. Well, the labels come from our table. We have flour and we have water. Put the labels, we number our number lines, and then we're going to plot the points. So our first point was 4:2. So like we do on our Math 5 a Day, we go over 4, up 2, and we put a dot. The next one is 8:4. So we go over 8, up 4, put a dot. And the last one is 12:6. Over 12, up 6, put a dot. So we have shared this information with flour and water on a ratio table. And now we have shown it on a graph. This, we can read the flour cups here, and we can find out how many water cups. According to this, 4 cups of flour with 2 cups of water. Right here we have 8 cups of flour matches with 4 cups of water. Okay, the other one I want to show you is different labels, and it's called time and earnings. So for so much time, you earn so much money. 1 hour, $10, 2 hours, $20, 3 hours, $30. We make our ordered pair. Once again, the ordered pair comes from here. We look at our labels. We put our labels on the axes. We number. If you notice, the numbering here is much different than it is up here. And the reason why is because we have only the numbers 1, 2, and 3, so we can space them out. Up here, we had 4, 8, and 12, so we had to be able to fit all those numbers on our number line. Then here, we had the 10s, so if we looked here, they counted by 5s, and they were able to graph over 1 up 10, over 2 up 20, and over 3 up 30. So we're going to make a couple of these on our graph paper to help us understand exactly how to do this. All right, so the first one we're going to graph is time here in minutes and the number of words. The number of words we typed per minute. So I'm going to list my ordered pair. So I'm going to take my chart, and on my notebook paper, I'm going to write the ordered pair. The first one is going to be 150 right here. The next one is going to be 2 100. And the last one's going to be 3 150. And so we need to list our ordered pairs on our notebook paper so that we can see which ones we need to graph. All right, so let's go to our graph paper. First thing we have to do on our graph paper is we need to put our label. Well, our labels are here on our chart. Let's move the chart here. So it looks like we're going to put here time. So let's leave a space where we can put our numbers. So we'll put the word down here, time in minutes. Looks like we have the numbers 1, 2, and 3. Well, that's going to be pretty simple to put on number lines. So the corner one's always going to be the number 1. And we're going to space these out a little bit since we have room to do it. So I think I'm probably going to spread the 3 by skipping here. So let's skip a line and put 1. Skip a line, put 2. Skip a line, put 3. And I really don't have to go too far because if we notice the highest one was 3. But we need to make sure our x-axis has a pattern of counting. So I counted by ones by skipping places. All right, now we're going to label our y-axis, which is number of words. So I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to turn it this direction. And I'm going to write number of words. Okay, so we've labeled both of our axes. Remember, if you need to pause the video so you can keep up, please do so. When I look at my numbers here, my number of words is 50, 100, 150. So we have to think of a pattern to count by. I say we could count by 5s, we could count by 10s. I don't want to count by 1s because I'd never make it to 150. I say let's go ahead and just count by 50s. Since I have the 3 numbers, we're going to kind of skip. I'm going to give us some space here. So let's put a 50, 100, 150, and I'll just put an extra 1 for fun, 200. If you notice, I tried to make a pattern by skipping a line 50, skipping a line 100, skipping a line 150. You have to make sure when you number your axes, there is a pattern. So now I've labeled, I've put my numbers on the X and Y axis, and now I am ready to plot the ordered pair points. Let's get the darker one so you can see it better. And the first one I'm going to do is 150. So I go over to the 1, I go up to the 50, and I put a dot. This says over 2, up 100, over 2, up 100, put a dot. Over 3, up 150, over 3, up 150, put a dot. And then I can connect starting from the 0 and make my line. This is the graph that represents this ratio table. So once again, if you need to pause the video so that you can get all this written down, please do so now. All right, so now we're going to look at number 2 here. Number 2 says the number of 6th graders to the number of 7th graders. So the first thing we have to do is we have to look at this and we have to write our ordered pairs. So let's write our ordered pairs. It looks like we're going to have 5 to 4, 10 to 8, and our last one is 15 to 12. Now, remember our ordered pairs, the first number that's listed is always our X. The second one is always our Y. X, Y, X, Y. We've listed our ordered pairs on our notebook paper. We're ready to go over here and put this on our graph paper. All right, let's see if we remember. Step number 1 is we put our label. So let's go down here on our X-axis. This will be our X. Let's write number like this. Number of 6th graders. 0 goes in the corner. If I notice I'm counting 5, 10, 15, well, that's a pattern. So let's go ahead and count the same way. I want to spread it out a little bit, so we'll do skip. We'll do 5, skip, 10, skip, 15. If I would go again, it would be skip 20, and I'm sure you probably could figure out all the way to 30 if we wanted. All right, then we're going to take and turn our graph so we can do the y-axis right here. And if we look at our graph, it says number of 7th graders. So we'll put here number of 7th graders. We always need to make sure we label both of our axes so we know what information is being graphed. All right, so I'll turn this back. Okay, we need to think about what we want to count with. We could count by 4s, 4, 8, 12, 16. We could even count by 2s. Let's go ahead and just count by 2s and see what that would do. So if I would count by 2s, I would do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and I made it to all of my numbers. Remember, when numbering our axis, we have to have a pattern. Okay, this pattern is by 5s. This pattern is by 2s, which means I can do 2 different patterns. I don't have to have them both the same. All right, so let's look at our points. Our first point here was over 5 up 4. So let's see, here's over 5 up 4. Put our dot. Let's see what our next dot says. Over 10 up 8, over 10 up 8. And last but not least, over 15 up to the 12. And we will connect starting from the 0 and make our line. The reason we put an arrow at the end is because realistically, eventually, there's going to be more and more 6th graders, and there could be more and more 7th graders, especially if I would take my ratio table here and I would continue counting 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I could keep going. All right, so the last thing I'd like to show you is once again in your math book on page 131. They've made here another example for us. This one is about you buy dark chocolate cashews for $12.50 per pound. And so they took this information, $12.50 per pound. Per means 1. So they made a ratio table saying if I buy 1 pound, that's $12.50. Now, if you notice, they dropped the 0. They could have put the 0 here or left it off. Next, 2 pounds of cashews. Well, we take $12.50 and we double it to get $25. 3 pounds of cashews. Well, $12.50 times 3 would be $37.50. So we've made our ratio table just from this sentence. Then, of course, we remember we make our ordered pairs. And then we have to graph. This one's a little tricky because we have a decimal. So if you notice, we put our labels cashews, dollars. Cashews are easy, counting by 1s. Dollars were more challenging. So if you notice, they counted by 5, 10, 15, 20. They just counted by 5s. So if you notice, our numbering is not going to hit exactly our amount. So when we had to go over 1 up $12.50, we went over to the 1 and we estimated. We know that $12.50 comes in between 10 and 15. So they kind of put a dot in the middle. Over 2 up 25. Well, you could go over 2, 25, hit that line. Over 3 up $37.50. So we went over 3. We went up. This line here is $35, as you can see. And the next one's 40. Well, we know $37.50 comes in between, so they put a dot halfway. So there's going to be times where we might have to put a dot in between 2 amounts and kind of estimate. All right, so what I need for you to do is go ahead and shut your video off. You are going to pay attention, and Mrs. Houck is actually going to do a graph with you in class now.